Privatization, 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 privatization. It's all you hear from Republicans. But what does it actually mean? Generations ago, America built an entire national highway system, along with the largest and best public colleges and universities in the world. Also public schools and national parks, majestic bridges, dams that generated electricity for entire regions, public libraries, public research. But around 1980, the moneyed interests began pushing to privatize much of this, giving it over to for-profit corporations. Privatization, the argument went, would boost efficiency and reduce taxes. The reality has been that privatization too often only boosts corporate bottom lines. Private for-profit corporations can do certain tasks very efficiently, and some privatization has worked. But the goal of corporations is to maximize profits for shareholders, not to serve the public interest. The question should be, what's best for the public?
Welcome back, everybody. Good evening. We're going to talk about, just what Robert Reich was talking about there, privatization, but in our public schools. Apparently the Republicans, the extreme right wing of the Republican Party, or pretty much the entire Republican Party at this point, has for some reason made it their mission to end social programs in the United States.
For the social good.
Right, to include public schools. And I hope this episode lays the foundation for the fact that these Republican politicians are for-profit politicians, whereas what I've been seeing more on the Democratic side is they're more for-people politicians. I'm not saying they don't want to make a profit. Obviously, it's a capitalist country. It's going to happen. However, it's gotten to the point now where they pretty much want to end all social programs. I mean, we're talking food stamps, Medicaid, anything publicly funded. They want to get rid of to include
childcare.
So instead of
healthcare,
the government helping us out more, they want to take more away, which seems to be their theme. They want to just continue to take your rights away, which I don't know how anybody in the right mind would support a party like that. But
they want your rights and your money and your loyalty.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's just out of control. But this is the times we live in, apparently. So we do have a great show lined up for you tonight. We do have some very special guests tonight. It's not just going to be me and Mike, doing our usual rant and raving. We actually have some experts here with us tonight. So let's get into that. Let me bring in our first guest, welcoming back to the show, Liz Mikitarian, from Stop Moms for Liberty, who is making, I think, your fourth appearance on the show. Welcome back.
Yes, absolutely. Glad to be here with my bearded wonder friends. I love it.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah, I actually like how mine's coming in. I didn't know I could grow a beard like this until like a couple months ago.
You didn't know.
I never tried before. I'm like, oh, this works. I'm losing hair up here, but gaining hair down here. So I'm
called wisdom.
Compromise. Right? Yeah, that's right. So how are you? How's the knee healing up?
Pretty good. I'm walking even without a cane now, so I take that as a positive. That's and the other knee hurts more, which is good because I need the surgery on that knee too. So I think I'm making progress. Thank you.
We'll get there.
Isn't aging just the best?
Every day it's something new, and ache and pain. Every morning.
I wake up with pulled muscles now. It's amazing. I'm like, how did I pull?
It's like you just turn the wrong way in bed. And you,
all right. So, what new projects do you have going on? Fill us in on some of the stuff that you have going on.
Sure.
Right now.
Well, we are about to launch a partnership with a group called Defense and Education. Democracy and Education, and that's going to be kind of a strategic plan to back school board members, to work to get them funding in some way, because we don't have money at Stop Moms for Liberty, but we can connect them, to other sources, to do some training pieces and just that support piece of the boots on the ground that are running for public office. So we'll be rolling that out with all the information and the specifics. Hopefully this week we'll be rolling that out. And we already have a ton of candidates that are reaching out to us with, hey, can you work with us? And we're like, yep, absolutely. So excited about that. That's been one of my things I've wanted to try. And I'm really excited about tonight because Maurice Cunningham is one of the people that I've looked to for information for maybe 10 years now. And he writes beautifully and he speaks beautifully about a lot of important issues when it comes to public education. So I'm really happy to be here and participate tonight.
Awesome.
Glad. Well, since he mentioned his name, we're going to go ahead and bring him in.
Let's do it.
So, yeah, welcome to the show for the very first time. Maurice Cunningham, how are you, sir?
Doing really
Welcome to the
well.
show.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Oh no.
Now,
it's
Morris
on.
is the author of Dark Money Politics of School Privatization, retired professor of political science at the University of Massachusetts in Boston, and a reluctant expert on Moms for Liberty. I tell you, I feel out of my league in this episode. I may be the least educated person here, so but that's okay.
Education
yeah.
is a lifelong pursuit, my friend.
I'm self-taught, baby. That's how you do it. So Morris, glad to have you on the show. So first, if anybody is interested, I do have the book, Dark Money and the Politics of School Privatization. I know it's on Amazon. I'm assuming it's on other platforms as well.
Yeah, widely available. Sure.
Excellent.
Very easy to get.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
was
Easy
any-
to get books.
Beforehand. And I didn't realize until today, using Google Books, I could have previewed the first like 45 pages, and I apologize. I was not aware of that until literally about 2 hours ago. So, but no, I'm glad to have you on the show. Please, for our viewers, I guess the first question is, what exactly is dark money? Because I know we hear the term a lot, but when I looked into it for the show, I didn't realize exactly how dark and how ridiculous it is. And how exactly and why exactly is it finding its way into our public school system?
I like to define dark money as vast sums of money used by very wealthy people, handfuls of very wealthy people, to pursue their own policy interests. And it has to remain dark because for a couple of reasons. One is, and this is all political science backs this up. There's wonderful studies on this, but the very wealthy people have far different policy preferences than the rest of us. All right.
Yeah.
And people intuitively understand that. So if we know that a policy is being pushed by Charles Koch or the Walton family or something, we get suspicious. So instead, they have groups, National Parents Union or Moms for Liberty, which sound upbeat. I mean, who doesn't like parents and moms? But it has to be parents and moms, because you can't say it's like Dick Uihlein or Charles Koch or the Walton family. It doesn't sell very well if you say that. And so, and this money comes into political campaigns, but it also comes into nonprofits that work on a range of issues, from the climate to healthcare to education. In our case, education. And so a group like Moms for Liberty it's an IRS sanctioned nonprofit, and they can take in unlimited sums, and it's very hard to trace that money. So all of this is really a Democratic scandal, Jeremy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And now you're talking about the political nonprofits. Those are the ones that are doing all the dark money stuff. Now, from what I understand, depending on where it comes, like a lot of this money doesn't even have to be reported, like who it's from. They can make large donations. I believe because of a Supreme Court ruling that we talked about a little bit, that said basically money is free speech.
Yeah.
So they could just
corporations are people, right?
Want. They said corporations can exercise their free speech through their money. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. And it seems like,
that's the Citizens United decision that goes to campaign money, and then there's the whole other world of the nonprofits, where it's very hard and often impossible to trace where that money is coming from. Except we know it's coming from people who have a lot of money.
Well, it sounds very much like legalized money laundering for the sake of implementing a corporate will, or maybe an individual will through a corporate arm, and then they're trying to have influence over what happens in our schools. Well, why would corporations have any interest in what happens in our schools? I mean,
And I will add that 9 times out of 10 charitable organizations are on the up and up, and they usually file as a 501c3. And then they do have to disclose all of this information. But this whole push against all of these, programs like public school system and Moms for Liberty, they have filed intentionally to a 501c4, which does not have the same regulation. So no, they don't have to disclose their donors. So they said that they were all about children and issues about public education, but they turned into a thing that they said, ooh, we don't want to have to say who's supporting us. And that in and of itself is a red flag.
It's funny. It's almost in the act of it itself. It's very dishonest. We want to help, right? We're mothers. We want to help children. We want to help out schools, but we don't want to tell you where we're getting our money. There's no way that you could say that with a straight face and expect people to not be suspicious of that. So I guess my next question would be, I know that there's money coming in from the left and the right that is dark, but are the intentions dark? Because why would you go through this route if you didn't have, say, nefarious intentions? But I know it's not just the left. Not just the right, it's the left. Do we need to stop all dark money, or is there a way to regulate good dark money? Is that even a thing?
That's a good point. I guess depending on the source.
Certainly in the campaign finance area, there's no such thing as good dark money, and there's no such thing as good unlimited contributions. It tilts everything to the wealthy, and it just really should not have any place in our elections. Now, as Liz says, almost all of the nonprofits, whether they be 501c3 organizations or 501c4, which she was mentioning, it's much harder to hide, much easier to hide your contributions if you're a C4. But many of them are just fine. But there is just a niche now where huge sums of money come pouring into politics. This out of so-called C4 is called a social welfare organization, or C3 is a nonprofit. Well, nonprofit sounds good, I mean, we want to buy another yacht or invest in nonprofits. But a nonprofit can be a source of unaccountable power, and that's what the wealthy people we're talking about are making these organizations into.
So it's really a big bunch of lobbying, special interests. Anyone with any influence is trying to have an effect not only on elections now, but on schools, right? Because one of the main focuses of this discussion tonight, especially, is its effect on public schools. Clearly, how organizations like Moms for Liberty get funded to do what they're doing, like trying to remove people's rights, remove children's rights, take books out of school, erase history, rewrite history. But how do you stop that when in a system that is designed to hide money? Because we're not talking about anything technically, I think I'm going to say this right, nothing's illegal here.
No.
I mean, morally bankrupt, but not illegal. So is there a way to stop dark money affecting schools when we can't get money out of politics? I mean...
Yeah, you're right. It's very hard to untangle this all because there are obviously a lot of wonderful charities, and yet the ones we're talking about today really have it in for the public. I think the IRS, and unfortunately they need Congress to help them with this, and they need the Supreme Court to stop making the kind of decisions they have been. I think disclosure is really crucially important. There are states that have stepped up and done more on disclosure. California, for one, and some other places. And disclosure is really critical because if we understand better where this money is coming from, as I said, it's harder for them to pull something over on us because we understand where the money is really coming from. So disclosure is really important, and they hate disclosure.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't come up with this, but
out.
I've heard people joke about this for a long time, that politicians should be wearing badges from the companies that they're support, like NASCAR. I mean,
like NASCAR.
It's funny.
They should,
because
right on their
it's
coats.
so sad because there is no functional difference between an athlete, right? They're starting to ruin my beloved baseball now with these ads all over their jerseys, but there's no difference between an athlete or a sports team pimping out for a product and a politician. except that at least the sports teams are letting you know.
Yeah.
You know, no one's
they're
going
not
to go
writing
to,
policy.
like you said, no one's going to go to, no one's going to go to Coke Stadium. By the way, we know these people don't support this. So, okay, we'll go to Tropicana Stadium. Sure, orange juice, whatever. But we're talking about serious stuff here with people that are affecting lives and children's and the future of our country. We can't build a functioning democracy without a functioning public school system. And the fact that there are people that don't accept that and are actively trying to destroy that, that scares me. And I don't have any kids, but I understand the importance of it on the future. When you taint it with influence, where does it stop?
You know what? Speaking of dark money, I'm sorry, Morris, the Heritage Foundation, I just have to bring this up real quick, is one of the first, when I hear dark money, it's like one of the first things I talk about. And we talked about this a little bit before the show. Project 2025. Mike and I did an entire episode on it. And there is an entire section in there on what they want to do to education. And it's horrifyingly well funded. There's like 90 plus conservative groups involved. Conservative groups should be called extremist groups at this point.
Yeah, really.
Well, conservative.
And recently we just found out that they had a 900-page manifesto and the whole section on education that they recently took off their website because I'm pretty sure it's because they didn't think, they're just so brazen. They're like, yeah, we'll just put this online. Nobody will find out about it. Now they're like, oh no, they found out.
The internet exists.
Well, and Mike, when you said, you know, how do you stop this kind of stuff? We're doing it tonight. This is what is needed, the exposure. So like you are both podcasters, you're willing to grapple this issue because it is very important. Specific to Moms for Liberty, they for at least a year and maybe 2 years said, oh, their money is from t-shirt sales. Their money is from contributions. Their money is from their membership across the country. Well, when they finally were forced to pony up their tax document, they have $2 million in their coffers. So that's not coming from t-shirts.
T-shirts is not an easy business. Anyone could print t-shirts. No one's making millions off t-shirts. It doesn't work that way.
They're not selling custom Bibles, are they?
No, that's just one guy.
But Liz is right, though. They had in 2022, which is the tax return Liz is referring to, they had $1 million contributor. They had a $500,000 contributor.
Oh, wow.
Single individual.
Yeah. The year before they had several $100,000 of income and about, $28,002 precisely of that was what they cleared selling t-shirts. So it's not t-shirts.
Well, but that goes to show that how fast their funding grew, right? Once, and it's funny because in some ways, I can't believe I'm going to try and say this, there's something to admire in the right's ability to identify good vehicles for their message and then support it. The left has never been good at this. Today, when there's every minute there's a video that they could just use for free to support their message, they're like, nah, we're not going to use that. But the right identifies groups like Moms for Liberty, recognizes their potential, not just in a way to use them politically, because I still believe as much as it is about greed, there are plenty of people that are trying to push social ills and take over the country that way, not just with money, but with how we live our lives. And they're very good at identifying, like I said, a Moms for Liberty. We know what their target audience is. We know what we can get out of them. Let's slip them some money. The left doesn't know how to do that. Now, you could do that in a non-evil way, support good messaging. The right just supports horrible messaging, but they're good at it. Is that because
they are good at it, Mike? And this is not an overnight sensation. This has been happening for decades in the United States. Some may say it goes all the way back to segregation and, how everything unfolded there. But I've been following it. Yeah, I've been following this push for privatization for over 30 years. I lived in Michigan when Betsy DeVos really laid it out in Michigan, and that was a disaster. So, yes, the right has been building and building and building, but here's the good part of that and why I'm able to, raise my head off the pillow when I went up in the morning. This is their best effort ever. This is their best shot at taking over. They have developed this brand, Moms for Liberty, How perfect is that? Moms fighting for children. I mean, it was like laid out perfectly. Unfortunately, they've stepped in their own stuff and they've made mistake after mistake after mistake. And so their brand is now soiled. So I feel that if we can keep pushing back and exposing this, that the right is not going to have as strong a push as they have right now.
A question that brings to my mind is, let's say in the coming days we are successful and we defeat a Moms for Liberty, regardless that they're imploding because they are themselves such massive, monstrous hypocrites, they can't even keep themselves under control. But let's say we squash them, they're done. That money isn't drying up and disappearing. They're going to funnel it somewhere else. So,
but hear my point. There has never been an effort this successful and this strong.
Right.
So if they can't win with innocent looking pretty moms at the microphone, that should appeal to all of America and bring America into their way of thinking. They can have whatever other group formulates after this. Moms for Liberty is already scrambling, trying to rebrand. And, you know, there's an Awake Illinois and there's all these different things, right?
Got it.
It's not going to be as impactful. It's not going to rise to the level that it has now.
The Heritage Foundation in Project 2025 recognized and said, I have the video somewhere in my hard drive. They actually said in a room full of people that this is their last chance to pull this off.
That's right.
Yeah,
I believe
that is why I think they're having such a strong focus on things like schools. They're targeting kids. I mean,
well, now they're trying to groom, right? They know education and the youth are key to everything.
They've convinced their people that the other side is the grooming the kids while they groom the kids is what kills me. They have convinced an entire millions of people in the United States that the other side is grooming your kids with this transgender stuff and with, you know, having rights, you know, you know what I mean? But
well, and I honestly think too, and Mo, I guess your expertise would be needed on this one, but I don't think these big pocketed donors are going to stay in this game if it doesn't have more success. It's starting to kind of go on the downhill climb. You see that in elections.
They need ROI, right? Return on investment.
Right.
It is all about greed, which how are they going to continue? So I guess, that's a great question for Mo is in your research, where has this money come from? Does it shift? What happens to it? And where do you see it going as their outlets are drying up?
Well, I look at it a little differently. I think their money is very long-term money. They will look for other avenues. Liz is right. I mean, it's not just the fact that they've kind of buried themselves. It's organizations like Stop Moms for Liberty. Everyday people stepping up and saying, we want schools that respect all students. We want schools that teach actual history, the real history of the country. And so they got into a fight that they didn't realize the opponents would be so tough. But Heritage has been around for over 40 years. And Heritage is one of the key organs of the extremist MAGA right that is behind Moms for Liberty. Another one is a 40-year-old operation called the Leadership Institute.
Right.
That trains, that hired Bridget Ziegler, one of the co-founders, as their director of training, and even put their office down in Sarasota. But they couldn't keep Bridget on the payroll for too long because of the sex scandal. But these are established organizations that have wreaked a lot of havoc, and they continue to do so. But the future of Moms for Liberty, I think, we're all seeing is very much in doubt because they really do keep stepping in it. It's since their national summit last July, first week of July, it has been nothing but catastrophe after disaster after fire for them.
Yeah,
I feel like they were the ones.
Do we think we'll see a point where these donors, like you said, they got to put their money somewhere, because to them this is no different than the stock market. They're investing, they want to see a return. Maybe this is more soulless than other investments, but have you seen? And maybe how do you predict that might go I assume, like Liz says, this is their best. So if
Yeah.
we're seeing their best, their boldest, and it's starting to hit them back, right? We see how voting is going with women's health care and birthing rights, IVF, for simple fertility rights, the loss of LGBTQ rights that we were gaining. When these hate groups, which is what Moms for Liberty is, become less attractive to the public and their influence is recognized for a small cancerous tumor that it is, that money's going to go somewhere. So are these people, is dark money itself going to disappear and they're just going to look for, maybe I'll just invest in an airline? Or are these people hell-bent on influencing politics? Is there an aspect of it that they're addicted to the influence? Or maybe some people obviously are nefarious.
It will go elsewhere. They are committed to privatizing public goods.
Right.
Okay.
Particularly education. And there's an organization, a sort of secretive organization that is an umbrella over all of these, over Leadership Institute and Heritage, which are members of a thing called the Council for National Policy. And I bring it up because the Council for National Policy, when Betsy DeVos was coming in 2017, they didn't write 900 pages about this. They wrote 10 pages about it. And in essence, they said, we got to get rid of public education and replace it with free market schools, religious schools, and homeschools. That's it. You can go to religious school, you can homeschool, or, maybe you can find a for-profit school to take your kid, and you'll be paying a pretty penny to do that. That's the idea that they have there. And it's very damaging. And they just, these are not people who like to pay taxes so that other people's kids will have a fair chance in life. Right?
Exactly.
And public schools require us to pay taxes.
So these people are inherently antisocial. They want they want tribalism, they want us and them, and they know that nothing they do will ever negatively impact them if they succeed. So they can keep building this hyper elite small class of rulers where they keep rolling that money over generation after generation. They keep milking the populace. They keep milking the workers. It's almost like this is what the goal of unfettered capitalism is. And it's unsustainable because at some point they're going to kill the rest of us, and then they better have the scientists with designing robots for them, because I don't know who's going to run the world.
What's it called when the rich feel like they're entitled to run the country just because they're rich? Is it a plutocracy? Is that the correct term?
Plutocracy.
The rich people just feel like they're entitled to the country, and they can.
We got all the money. We must be doing something right.
The 300+ million people. But you talked about social program or social issues, not social issues. But anyway, it kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about. Like, this is in the government. Like I think Mike Johnson is a Heritage Foundation plant all day long. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. You know what I mean? But these people, when they took over in 2020, when they sworn in office in 2023, the GOP did this. I forget which committee did it, but it's called HCon Res 9. It was one of the first things they did when they came into office is they made, you can see it on Congress.gov, denouncing the horrors of socialism. Every Republican signed this. Not a single Democrat would sign this. And what they're saying here is this is their ideas of what socialism. Whereas socialist ideology necessitates a concentration of power that has time and time again collapsed into communist regimes, totalitarian rule, and brutal dictatorships. Whereas socialism has repeatedly led to famine and mass murders and killing of over 100 million people worldwide.
They're not good at definitions. They really don't understand what these are the people that I have. When I was a younger lad and got very angry on the internet, I would argue with people. I'm like, you do understand that socialism is like a monetary thing and democracy is like a governance thing. So you could actually have people agree on how to spend all the wealth to benefit each other. And that doesn't lead to the bad, spooky things. It's when you take those things and separate them that it all goes to hell. And that seems to be what these people who are consolidating their wealth and power are trying to do.
Now, they're going after anything they believe to be socialistic. Which,
Well,
like
let
we're
me just
saying,
add in
public
here,
schools.
Jeremy, that there's a reason why they went after education first. This wasn't just, you know, an unthought out choice. They knew that turnout for school board elections was usually very slim or non-existent.
Oh, that's
They
so
knew,
insidious.
they knew that they could manipulate by pouring a small amount of money even into local elections, and that they could make their imprint, and therefore then they could spread from there into your municipal offices or your county level offices and so forth, and build up from there. And so that's why I have hope, is because yes, it worked very well in the fall of 2022. And then fast forward to that spring of 23, they were not as successful because people were starting to see, wait a minute, you're attacking public education and we believe in public education.
Right.
And then the fall of 23 that we just had elections, they were even less successful. So they did this intentionally because they thought it was the lowest fruit on the tree. The low hanging fruit, I guess is the saying, and we'll get in this way. And I don't think in a million years they thought that they would get the amount of resistance that they have gotten. I think they believed that the general populace was so against public schooling and so, just they believed that there were such problems in public schooling that it would be an easy takeover. But I'm here to tell you, the majority of Americans want to have a public school system.
So it
They
almost
want a
seems like
better public school system. I mean,
That seems like-
Absolutely. And I'm the first to say it should always be better. That's continuous
Absolutely.
improvement.
But
But
they're
you
always
see,
trying to
don't
cut
throw it
funding
out.
to public schools. They've been for decades. They've been finding ways to cut public education. They should
Absolutely.
be you would think you would pour money into public education. Like, wouldn't you want your future generations to be more intelligent than the last? Like,
but
I never understood
Liz
the
made that
concept
point.
because I had a parent. I was raising a kid. My daughter was deaf, and I live in a rural area. It's not exactly like hopping for special services, if you know what I mean. I had to fight every year to just get her a sign language interpreter for the longest time before she ended up going to an actual school for the deaf. And it just blew me away how hard it was to get
So,
something.
Jeremy, why isn't Moms for Liberty fighting for that?
Exactly. Why aren't they trying to help do the stuff
They
like
have
that?
no
Like,
platform for good.
no,
They have no
none.
platform
Well,
statements of things they want to see that are good. Instead, they want to take it over.
That's the whole point, is the platform of hate is the easy ticket, the quickest ticket. But over time, everyone starts to look at what you're hating and they start to identify a different piece of themselves in their hate. And they go, wait a minute. And that's when everyone starts to realize they're on the same side and the hateful people are actually the smaller group. So to your point earlier, Liz, their arrogance is almost that they thought it was so easy to get people on their side because everyone knows public school, it's stupid. No, you're stupid by thinking public school is wrong. The rest of us think it's broken and need to be fixed. Those are not
There's
the
a big
same.
difference, right?
And then where I guess the dark money comes in, right? Oh, we could use this because we know that's how people think. So do they not have, I hate to say this, but like, not how would they better themselves? How would they make their positions better? But can they even? Because it's not a winning long-term perspective. Eventually, no matter what, you're going to get people to resist when you have nothing but hate.
Yeah.
What did they expect?
And this has been a long time coming when you're saying, their efforts. The big push really was the standardized testing craze. And that in and of itself has been designed to show that the public school system is a failure.
They implemented that to make it fail?
Absolutely.
Makes total sense.
And so when they get these standardized test scores that then your, politicians or your CEOs or whatever can say, oh my gosh, this is awful. Those tests are designed, used to be in the day, Pearson was one of the big
I know that
publishers,
name.
and they're the ones that designed the test. Well, then those tests be given and then the kids are struggling. So then, gee, what happens? Pearson sells all the remedial materials back to the school districts. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, this whole standardized testing craze, and it has taken millions and millions of dollars away from the public school system.
Let me tell you, the pursuit of wealth doesn't seem to be for the public good.
Now, what's the end game, Morris? What's the end game of all of this? Like, what do you see? if the election goes the wrong way, what kind paint a realistic picture of what the school system would look like if, say, Donald Trump were to be elected to office?
Oh, I think there's no question that the administration would be rapidly moved to take away people's rights to an education, would rapidly institute the kind of control over learning that Heritage would very much like, with that they would like a completely, I have to tell you, you know, old white guy version of American history will prevail. Texts will be. You think the book banning is significant now?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Religious. There's a test case in Oklahoma right now as to whether a Catholic school can become a charter. There will be more of this sort of thing. Tax dollars going to voucher schemes, to for-profit schools, to religious schools, and we will public education. Liz is right; it can always be better, but it has served many of us, including me, extremely well over the years. It's a great system. We have had great public universities out of it. We've had great public schools. They will be decimated and destroyed. And Jeremy, you have a child that needs assistance learning. Well, that is not part of the equation.
No.
I know it isn't.
Young people that might need a little extra help to succeed, they're not going to get that. There's no profit in that. Religious schools don't want to deal with that. Charter schools don't want to deal with that. So the impact, and this is why people really have to work extremely hard, get involved. I know politics is not everybody's thing, but we really need to work extremely hard, as Liz and Stop Moms for Liberty are in this area. But we all have to come together and save these people from taking away our rights and our freedoms in order to impose their own set of controls.
I think it's kind of. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike, before I forget. I think it's kind of one of the reasons we created this show is we wanted to get people that normally aren't into politics and show them the crazy side. Like it's better than reality TV right now. I mean, seriously, all you have to do is open up Twitter to see all kinds of insane stuff that's going on. Like these are grown people saying the most outrageous stuff. Like, and it's unbelievable. I can't believe it's happening in 2024. I feel like our country's devolving or going backwards.
Oh yeah,
in a serious way. And I'm terrified for the younger generation if they don't vote and participate. So yes, like I said, it's kind of why we wanted to do it. Like Mike has been into politics a long time, whereas I just got into this like 3 years ago. I'm very new to this. All the stuff we do on the show is stuff I've learned over the course of this process. So it is possible. So we try and do serious shows like this, but we do ridiculous shows as well to show like just the insanity that's going on.
One thing I love about doing these is it's another way to like spark my investigation into this ridiculous life that we live.
Right.
So something I never thought of before until Mo, you just said it. And I don't know if it was intentional or if you meant it the way I'm about to spin it, is you said the phrase right to education.
Yeah.
In this country, we don't have a right to education. It doesn't say it anywhere in our Constitution, but morally, I think those of us on the right side of history understand that a right to education is an inherent human right. Do we fix this any other way than by putting an amendment to the Constitution to say life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and pursuit of education to better one's mind, to improve one's life in ways other than financial or material gain?
That's a good question.
Constitutional amendment is always extremely hard. I think the best path we have is the one that Liz and Stop for Liberty are on, which is to fight for what we have and don't let the hard right take it away. Yeah. We have a public education system that has served this country exceptionally well since our founding.
Some of us.
Some of us,
right.
Not all of us. No, yeah. I mean, and I mean, the obvious demographic that hasn't been well served is the African American population, and they are once again under attack from the right on this, and they do. Public schools in their communities are often not what they are in other places, and we need to make those better. But let me tell you, cutting the taxes that go into those schools that all our children go to is not going to solve anything. It's going to solve the bottom line for some for-profit schools.
Oh, of course. It's interesting.
Well, historically, and I hate to say it because it sounds awful when you say it, but historically, schools that serve the African American community, public schools, have been severely underfunded.
That's right.
By
Obviously,
design.
intentionally. Like, you want to say systemic racism doesn't exist. I mean, Jesus, we tried to underfund or undereducate an entire race.
Look, I'm not gonna.
You know
I'm gonna bring this up every opportunity I get, because today it still blows my mind. Is the first time I learned about it. Is the whole point of like racist engineering and civil engineering. So you look at the inner cities. There's only so much area. Well, when you have a lot of people and a lot of kids, where are they going to go in a small area? Are you going to get all those teachers in to be able to educate all those kids? You're already designing a crammed, overcrowded mess. So you're not going to put that in. If you're rich and wealthy and white, you're not going to allow that to happen to you. So you want to spread out in the nice, comfortable, and you start marginalizing everyone else. Well, what have we been talking about? How the public school system has been treating, Black people their whole existence in this country. The right is trying to do now to the LGBTQ plus community what they've been doing to Black people in school, which is demonize them, push them out, erase them, pretend it didn't happen. Meanwhile, we have people that are still alive today, owners of businesses in politics, that were there yelling at children going to integrated schools for the first time. We're not far away from segregation, and we're headed back that way, but in a more extreme form. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the only way to fight back is, like you're both suggesting, is to keep educating ourselves, spreading the message. And it's a tireless effort, but I guess that's the only best way.
Am I wrong in saying, like, this, to me, that just feels like they want full-on segregation again?
Yes, that is one of the goals.
They want everyone
I really feel
but
like
them
that's the real
to have
end
no
game.
education. They want to keep everything for themselves and go, you live in the wastelands.
So I want people watching to understand what we're talking about. They're trying to make it that if you don't have enough money, your children don't go to school.
Right.
Okay, understand that real quick. Your government,
like with
right
now,
that free education that everybody takes for granted. I did. Because I'm not college educated. I kind of screwed around in high school. You know what I mean? So I'm self-taught in certain ways. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's actually staggering.
It's actually explained really well in a book. I'm about halfway through it. It's called CASTE, CASTE. Highly recommend that.
Oh boy.
I see Mike writing it down. And it explains that the ultimate goal is to have a caste society of haves and have-nots, similar to what is in India or in some other
Wait a minute.
countries. And that's what a lot of these folks, these white Christian nationalists, far right extremists, believe is the right way, that there should be this, upper class of people, even though in the long run, they may not actually be included in that upper case.
Well,
they don't, I don't know.
Right.
But, and then there would be this lower class. So will all the public schools close? Maybe, maybe not. I know that they will be greatly impacted. And so then you will have a lower class in their minds, right? In the public school system that are just kind of getting by.
Yep.
Whereas then public dollars are what they're moving into this upper echelon of education. So it's going to be those that are educated and those that aren't really.
So what you're saying is socialism for the rich, because they'll be taking everything from us to provide for them. Which is very close to, and I don't know where I would get this idea. It's not like we have a parallel in history or anything, but like almost like, I don't know, full on slavery again. But instead of just one group of people, it'll be everyone but the anointed, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen the way it happened in every society in history that wanted to do this. Well, okay, I mean, I'm not going to let you in, but I need to put this money somewhere. Oh, dynasties. Ah, now we're into hereditary titles.
I was just playing it out in my head. I had like a mental picture of these poor white people who've supported the right this whole time. You know what I mean? They take over,
They don't get
the
it.
schools are privatized, and then they find out
That's such a
they don't
great
have
point,
enough.
Well,
Jeff.
they're going to be at the door. They're
Like,
going to
these
knock and
poor-
go, my kids are white. Why aren't they there? And
They
they're
have
the right
done
white.
such an effective job, and Morris, maybe you can clarify on how they do this, of turning an entire nation of, I mean, we're talking tens of millions of people to vote against their own best interest.
Yeah.
How have they
Yeah.
convinced these people? Are they focusing I hate to say it, but the ignorance of this country?
I'm sorry to say that I think it does have to do with race. I think, you know, when I first started following these kind of groups, it was a group called Parents Defending Education and Allied Moms for Liberty. It was very clear. It was very clear that they were targeting white backlash. Now, you know, they got a little bit lucky for them, I guess. COVID came along and created a crisis. So we're all aware of all the problems it caused. That was an opportunity for them. But it was very clear to me that they were, and this has happened in education politics before. They were taking advantage of white backlash, and Moms for Liberty has done that. And now, as we were talking about earlier, they are targeting, and not just the LGBTQ plus community, but very particularly transgender individuals.
Right.
A very small part of the population is under attack. And they think this plays well for them. And I guess in certain areas it does play well for them. But it is immoral to target people. It is traumatic. You know, for all their claims of, oh, we're protecting children, they are traumatizing children, other people's children. Teenagers
Children are taking their lives.
Just want to go to school and hang out with their friends and maybe play soccer with their friends or whatever it might be, and they are attacking them and traumatizing them and getting people so emotionally involved that for these young people, teenagers, children, really, their lives are really, the stress level has just been terrible on them. It's an awful thing, as we saw in Oklahoma not too long ago.
Yeah.
I thought Liz mentioned that. I just want to add on to that. But yeah, LGBT or trans homelessness, especially in trans suicide, is a very big issue right now.
I just,
as a result of the horrific attacks against their community by the extreme right wing.
I just saw something earlier. It was on Instagram.
It's awful what they're doing.
It was a statistic that said, and of course I didn't get a chance to, vet it, but it's from a good source, an LGBTQ account, really good one. And it was just having one supportive adult in a trans kid's life. Doesn't have to be parent, could be a teacher, could be that nice neighbor that isn't creepy and is just kind of fun. One reduces the potential for suicide by like 40%.
Yeah.
Which shows you how simple it is.
Yeah.
And how horrifying it is to target not just the LGBTQ community as a whole, but the transgender population is microscopic. They talk about transgender kids in sports. We're talking like a half of a percent of a half a percent. And if they don't have their boogeyman, people got to have their boogeyman and be afraid of someone and blame someone that their stupid kid didn't get accepted to the team because that trans kid did. There's no trans kid in your neighborhood that is on that team. I guarantee you it's a very small percentage.
I'll tell you something that happened. This takes me back to Oklahoma. In the wake of the next Benedict tragedy, 8 Republicans wrote a letter, pretty nice letters, advising kids who are feeling stressed, anxious, desperate, to check out the Trevor Project, which is it's a nonprofit, it's a 501c3 that works to help particularly distressed individuals, LGBTQ plus kids, and suicide prevention. Well, Moms for Liberty in Oklahoma then attacked the Trevor Project as rumors and pedophiles, which was then taken up and retweeted by Tiffany Justice, who is the co-founder and runs Moms for Liberty with Tina Deskovich, both of Florida. This is the level of things that this is. People, just the Trevor Project, just trying to help people, and they get attacked as grooms. It's insane.
What just happened on Sunday? They freaked out because Easter was just happened to be on
Right.
But it's not working.
Transgender
Let's
Day.
get this straight. Okay, so Trans Visibility Day did not fall on Easter. Okay, Easter fell on Transgender Visibility Day because Easter's a different day every year. So stop with it.
What I find
They
really
lost their
funny about that
freaking
attack,
minds on Twitter. Jesus.
and I think the failures that I'm seeing in that attack might go to what Liz said earlier about their luster is not what it once was. You could see now, if you put the time in to look through a bunch of different media outlets, who is responding to those nonsense claims and that, I'm just going to say it, bullshit, about how they're trying to make it like, oh, President Biden is destroying Easter. Meanwhile, the orange guy doesn't know the Lord's Prayer. I'm an atheist. I could probably recite it. And meanwhile, Biden's in church that day and then running around chasing kids with a water gun and playing with them because he's Sleepy Joe. But maybe that luster isn't there anymore. I don't know. I just don't know if the hate so is as palatable
now. I think they're losing, like you said, they're losing their momentum, I think.
Well, and I think it's a question. It's a question of they just keep going too far. And every time they step over the line, it's one thing to go after a book like, All Boys Aren't Blue. It's another thing to raise a concern about Charlotte's Web. And it really has gotten people focused on the ridiculousness of their approach to all of this.
It's funny because it also shows how far, not just that they're using an extreme argument, but they really do believe that, maybe there really should only be one book in school. Like that is their mentality. And it's like you said, Charlotte's Web, I grew up on that book.
I know. We all did.
Look, if you want to have a legitimate conversation on whether or not The Catcher in the Rye, the language and imagery in that is age appropriate for 16-year-olds, sure, we could have a conversation about that. Right. But you can't tell me you're legitimately concerned about kids if you're attacking Charlotte's Web. So to your point, Liz, and I think better than I was making my earlier point, people are seeing the ridiculousness of it. No one's proclaiming Trans Visibility Day over Easter. No one's saying your kid has to be gay. Just because you're exposed, just because there's a world bigger than these people want to shove their kids into, doesn't give them the right to attack it. But these big money groups are perfectly happy to exploit it. And I don't see a way out. I guess that's the problem, because we're going to keep fighting and then they're going to find a different way. Does the dark money ever dry up? Does the attack against public schools ever end?
Well,
not improvement, the attack.
We're kind of taking the knees out from underneath it with exposure and getting people. My Pollyanna statement is that I believe after all of this is said and done, teachers will finally be respected. Teachers will make more money. Schools will be better funded. Standardized testing will go away like it should. And we will get back to a more quality push and a more supported push, because people are being told, well, we're going to take away your schools. If you go to this private school, great, but we're going to take away this system that you have relied on for all of this time. And invariably, I talk to somebody that is, full on out Moms for Liberty. And when I say, okay, so you want your child's school to close? And they say, well, no, my child's school is fantastic. And I say, do you want your child's teacher to be driven out of education? Oh, no, we love her. We think she's great. I said, so realize that what you're involved in could have those outcomes. And they're like, the light bulb comes on, and they say they're going to do their research and see what they're actually involved in. And that's really important for us to keep sending that message out as well.
Good.
Yes.
I have to ask, I was going to just ask Mars a question. So you've mentioned Leadership Academy or Leadership Institute. Yep. You've mentioned the Heritage Foundation, Koch brothers. What are some other names that you can share with us that you found that are like the bigger names in this?
Well, certainly with Moms for Liberty, Julie Fancelli, Publix heiress, who was also involved in sending several $1 million to the Stop the Steal rally. But Fancelli has been a major backer of Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty has a federal PAC that has been entirely funded by a guy named Dick Uihlein. He's from, I think it's Wisconsin. He is a billionaire, considered to be the Koch of the Midwest. Koch himself is almost certainly behind Parents Defending Education, an ally of Moms for Liberty. So, we're beginning to get a clearer picture. It's hard to trace this money, but we're beginning to get a clearer picture. The Bradley Foundation and Bradley Impact Fund, a right-wing group out of Wisconsin. Other elements of the Koch network are absolutely involved. I've seen the proof of that. So these are the biggest players with money, but also the biggest players who have to stay hidden because, as I say, when people know who it is, when people know who it is, they look deeper and they get suspicious.
What about
Alec? Was Alec one of the pieces in your studies of all of this?
Alec is certainly a part of it. Alec is American Legislative Exchange Council. It's one of the troika of Koch-aligned organizations. It writes model legislation, including education legislation, and then just passes it on to your Republican legislator at whatever state it is, and often becomes law. So Alec is critically important. State policy network. Americans for Prosperity are kind of three very Koch-heavy operations, but there's a proliferation of them, as we've seen.
I just started reading your book, so can I assume that a lot of this is spelled out in your Dark Money book?
A good amount of it is, although I have to tell you, when I wrote that, it was the tax on public education. You've alluded to it earlier. Was more of a neoliberal bent. They're sort of not the white backlash group. So I published that, and then along came these groups, and I had been working on a tax on some college professors.
Oh, you need another book then,
I was just going to say,
right? Yeah, we need a follow-up.
I looked at Moms for Liberty, and I said, okay, I know what they are.
Yeah,
because I've done the college work too. But the funding mechanisms are the same. So I think my book will be a big help on the funding.
Someone's going to need to chronicle the fall of Moms for Liberty.
Yeah, exactly. So we've also followed Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, sending people like Kyle Rittenhouse, the college campuses to try and
that didn't go well.
No, and so far I think they're finding out that outside of their extreme little bubble, nobody likes these people. They're only popular within their own little group. Unfortunately, I think they're more united. That's why they're so effective.
Well,
they have a mission that they're united under.
I think it's like a magnetic rage. They're just so focused and hateful that you can't. They're at a point now where it's hard to bring, if not impossible, anyone into the fold. Which is why now their only option is to take over public education and to send people into college campuses, is because they need to breed and groom the next generation of hateful monsters, because no one's joining their cause. Like, I cannot imagine there is literally anyone that woke up anytime today and went, yeah, MAGA's for me. I'm going that way. Like, that's
I
not
was
a
on
thing.
the fence. I was on the fence, but
yeah, I don't know, but that latest attack on that gay kid, I'm in.
Yeah,
so
that just won me over. Like, what is wrong with these people? But yeah, so all right, one more question before we have to go, because we're actually almost out. I can't believe it's almost been an hour already. Last question, just for our viewers, Maurice, how can average people fight back? Not just parents, but people that may have kids in the future, or the young Gen Z. How do people effectively fight back against the ridiculous and focused effort to overthrow everything?
Organize and find the decent people in your community. Find the organization like Stop Moms for Liberty. There are similar organizations in many communities, and Stop Moms for Liberty is national now. Support your school board members. Support your teachers, support your principals, find out what's going on, and even go to a school board meeting and speak up, because numbers matter. And organizing with each other, and you'll find, despite the bad rap that politics has, you'll find people who have the same point of view as you do, who are passionate about it, and you'll wind up having a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and we're winning.
we are.
I do have to say, we may actually have one more question, because someone who is following us along tonight on Instagram has a question for you, Mo.
Oh, sure.
What to do when we see promos online for unaccredited curriculum created by Tom, Dick, and Harry, door open to entrepreneurs?
Oh, that's a tough one. They're so very hard to trace those. I immediately start tracing the money, but it's very hard. It's very hard to do. You have to educate yourself and others about these things. I clicked on one today. I was reading the Washington Post, and it was take a course on the Federalist Papers. I love the Federalist Papers. And so I clicked on it. It was a free course from Hillsdale College. Well, then you have to say, what's Hillsdale College? It's a far right.
Yeah, there you go.
Kind of it is a accredited college in Michigan, but
they sound like they would be pushing. They sound like they'd be pushing the anti-Federalist Papers.
Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a particular happening in maybe that question askers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a word. The person that posed the question. And I think that they need to hold their school boards accountable. And even if things like this do slide in, don't give up on your school system.
Just keep
because
doing it.
Even if you have a board that has flipped into this far right mentality, which even my own has done that, right? You hold them accountable by getting the public to understand what is happening. So teach your public why accreditation is so important. Teach them how it impacts the trajectory of kids trying to go to college. In our case in Florida, teach them about the importance of AP classes and how that puts our kids on, a real playing field to go out of state. I think in Florida, the plan is to dumb them down and keep them in state. Yes. And so that's what they're pushing for here.
That's what it seems like.
Keep them voting.
Yeah. But we just need to inform people and, speak up, like he said, at the school board meetings. And the people want to know what's going on, but unfortunately, they don't always know. So,
Liz, I feel like you're implying that PragerU is not a very good source of educational material.
Have you ever seen the gentleman that is behind PragerU? He is a scary human being. He is a scary human being.
All right. Well,
and
that's unfortunately all the time we have for tonight's show. Liz, Dr. Cunningham, thank you so much for coming on the show. I was nervous because, like I said, I did not know much about the topic before this episode. So very educational. Again, I learned a lot. I hope our viewers did as well. Yeah. So that's it. That's all we got for tonight.
I'd like to ask everybody listening to pick up a copy of Dr. Cunningham's book. Because the more we know, the better equipped we will be.
Yep, available on Amazon right now or any other platform that you want. I know it's on Google Books for sure. Dark Money and the Politics of School Privatization. Please.
We have bookstores still?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, before they close all the bookstores too.
They will close. They will prevent the public sale of any book. You mark my words.
Oh my God, man.
Or hopefully don't.
All right. All right. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Share the channel or share the show if you can. Any help that we could get is greatly appreciated. We love the support that we've gotten so far. We're just getting warmed up. And if you like the stuff that we've been doing, just give us a thumbs up and a subscribe and hit that notification bell. It helps with the algorithm and it helps us grow. That's all we're asking. A couple clicks from you. So other than that, you guys all have a good night. And like always, we will talk to you soon.
Thanks.
I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America to the future. The issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. I see a future where defending democracy, we don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, where the middle class finally has a fair shot, and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America.